Namaskar, once again from Ananda in the Himalayas. Welcome to another session. Thank you all for joining in. Today we are going to be joined by Anu Kalra, a visiting master at Ananda and a very special guest. We're here to talk about a topic which I'm sure all of you will be really interested in listening to. This is about applied spirituality, and we're going to be talking a lot about wisdom that we can gain from Indian mythology. So I'm just waiting for Anu to join in our video, and there she is. Anu, namaskar. How are you?
Namaste, kaise hain aap? I'm good, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining in. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Okay, is there some way? Let me try to get so that I get more of my face and less of the roof in this. Yeah, this looks better, right?
I can also adjust this a bit.
Yeah.
Perfect. Great. So excellent. Thank you so much for being in. Great to have you with us.
It's great to be here.
We have audiences joining us from different parts of the world. So I'm really excited about today's talk. For those who are joining in today, and you would have seen our quote saying today we're going to talk about spirituality, applied spirituality, and lessons from Indian mythology. And it's a great pleasure for me to introduce a very special guest, Anu Kalra. Our association with Anu has been because Anu has been a visiting master, and it's a delight to have her again here. Well, not live in person, but at least live virtually. And today, I think this is going to be a really interesting topic because it's actually quite different from what we've normally done from our usual talks on Ayurveda and yoga. So I'm really looking forward to exploring this side of it. Before we jump into the details of today's talk, let me start by giving a brief introduction on Anu. And that's going to be difficult because she's really done so much and she has such a varied number of hats and that she always juggles. But let me try and see if we can do some justice to it. The interesting part is Anu actually started off and she spent more than about 20 years in the corporate world, which is not something that you see very normally when we're kind of talking about this range of topics. So she spent a lot of time, 20 years to be exact, in the corporate world, specifically in the communications field, communication strategy and media. Before, I think, she started on a kind of a personal journey of her own, exploring spirituality and going very deep into an understanding of scriptures and meditation and mindfulness. And we're glad she did it because with all of that personal journey, she was able to take that journey and bring it out to the benefit of the whole world and really focus on using that wisdom, or that traditional wisdom, for transformation of others. And many people have benefited through that. So it's a real privilege. The way Anu has used that traditional wisdom of the scriptures, of Indian mythology, of Indian philosophy, to really conduct a lot of guidance sessions, workshops, corporate training workshops, and training, personal guidance, counseling sessions, and really brought in, not just from one discipline, but she's brought in her understanding of yoga, of tantra, of meditation, of mindfulness, NLP, positive psychology. There's a whole breadth of disciplines that Anu's been through, and all of this she brings across when she speaks about spirituality. I know from feedback from our guests who've been at Ananda that they've benefited a lot, and they've actually been fascinated the moment she starts talking about these aspects. I'm really looking forward to discovering these with you, Anu, today. And it's a real pleasure to have you. And I know that, that's why I was saying so many hats. Besides all of these, you're also an author and an artist. And I know that you've written a book, a comprehensive book, and also several paintings, an entire series of paintings actually talking about Hindu deities and the inspiration from them, guidance, and how you can use them through meditation. And I know you have a great set of cards that you use for doing this. And it's fascinating how many different aspects that you've actually brought in. So, wow, I mean, I'm really, really looking forward to learning a little bit more. I don't know how you juggle all of this and how you've been putting all these different aspects together, but it's fascinating for me, and I'm sure for our audience too.
Oh my God, I like myself better today.
No, it's amazing to see someone who actually goes on such an interesting journey, especially after starting out with something that almost all of us start out with a corporate career. So kudos to you, and it's amazing to speak to you about this, especially at a time like now. How are you really? How have you kind of taken this whole period? I'm sure you're going through it yourself. This period of about 5 months that we've all been locked in. Have you been continuing and doing sessions online with your clients or your followers?
Yes, actually, the last 5 months have been a busier time for me than ever before.
Wow.
Because a lot more people have required hand-holding than ever before.
Right.
And therefore, we have almost 2 sessions every day. And about 2 weeks back, I kind of requested a couple of friends to come over and take more sessions, because I thought, since we'd created this platform of Cafe Spirituality where a lot of people were attending, it was only fair that they get exposed to other thought processes as well, and not just my own.
Sure.
Because end of the day, each person is unique. And therefore, not everybody is going to have resonance with only one person. And if you're actually serious about being supportive and helpful, what should matter is that the other person receives the support, no matter from whom. And if you can facilitate that by connecting them with other people who may have a slightly different approach, and that helps, and so be it.
Right, absolutely.
Right? And I'm going to take from what you said that we all started the same. And I'm just going to step back further and say we all started the same. Actually, not just in terms of our careers, but even in our lives, as we became aware from childhood about who we are. And then given the social conditions that we were in, given our past karma, the kind of circumstances we manifested for ourselves. And somewhere along the line, a lot of us lost sight of what was real and what was important in our lives. And we started looking at success in a certain way, started looking careers for the sake of careers, and not recognizing that they were just one aspect of ourselves. And which is why this applied spirituality concept came out. That this concept of a spiritual life and a material life as being two separate. No, there is life.
Yes.
There is life, and
you can apply it or you cannot apply it. Yeah.
Yeah. And spiritual is what? The essence of a matter. That is the spirit of the matter, right? So spirituality is something that supports you in getting to the essence of yourself. And therefore, and when you apply that to the various aspects of your life, whether it's your emotional life in terms of relationship, whether it's your career, whether it's your physical health, whether it's your peace of mind, whatever. And when you apply that, that is when it becomes real. Otherwise, if it is about doing half an hour meditation through the day, or 1 hour, or doing a ritual, and then never looking back the rest of the day and going and being your own anxious self and angry self and fearful self, then what is the point?
Absolutely. And I know that you're called in to speak at many interfaith forums, and that's a good testimonial to say that spirituality goes much beyond religion.
Yeah, so actually, almost every religion, when it was started, was not started as a religion. It was started as an understanding of what is the essential difference. Let's look at this. So somebody went through a self-actualization of a certain kind and had an experience which that person realized is beyond words. And the person cannot explain what he had achieved, what he had experienced, what she had experienced. But that person had so much compassion develop. This person realized that he has to share. You know, It's like very simple. You give up smoking, And if there are people around you who are smoking and you look at them and you see that they have this husk in their voice and they have this cough and they have low stamina, and you feel so overcome with kindness for them, saying, can I share with this person how I gave up smoking so this person can have a better life? So these people who had these experiences of the self which were astounding, and they realized that there is no need to be in so much fear. There is no need to be full of shame and anger and anxiety about life. And they did not, then they felt, how do I share this? So they shared a set of principles. They shared the steps that they followed to arrive at that. That was their spiritual journey. People after them converted that into a set of principles and rules and regulations as a religion. That is the essential difference. Right. What worked for them then may not work for many people today. And that's all right. It doesn't take away from what they had achieved. But our loyalty has to be to the process of discovering and not to a process somebody else had done. So that exploration aspect is very important. Before one settles and says, this is my path, what is the harm in looking at various paths and finding the one that you resonate with the most, and therefore carrying on from there? Which is why I thought today we will speak about Krishna, because out of all the various deities and gods that we have available to us, if there is anybody multifaceted, it is Krishna. And tomorrow when day after being
Janmashtami. It's a great time, exactly, with this week being Krishna Jayanti. So it's a fantastic time to do that, Janmashtami.
Yes.
So before we get into that, this is something which is, I mean, we could talk about it all day actually, but or it could be like something really simple for somebody who gets it. But in your entire journey, how then do you really start defining spirituality? Is it a process? Is it an end realization? Is it just the fact that you're able to search deeper? What exactly is it according to you?
Yeah, so spirituality for somebody can be, see, all of us are people who are multifaceted, right? Nobody is only one kind. So there is an emotional aspect to us. There is a physical aspect to us. There is a mental and intellectual aspect to us, and there is an etheric aspect to us, an aspect which we cannot probably see, but there is something in us that knows there is something beyond what I currently feel about myself. And that stepping into that beyond is what we call spirituality, right? I would say that even those aspects from the physical, from the mental and the emotional that support my going and delving into that dimension is also part of spirituality. Because that is when it is a holistic process, right? So in my case, what I found was that born in a Hindu family, but there was never any murti puja or anything happening in my house. I used to find it very intriguing. Kya karte hain ye log? Why do they do this? What is going to happen through it, right? And I always asked questions, but very few people ever had answers. And so as my curiosity grew, I started looking around for answers. And since I was in the corporate realm, a lot of the understanding I got was very much in sync with the corporate understanding of life, so to say.
How so? Can you kind of, what did you find as similarities?
Absolutely. So this concept of Trinity, which is not just in Sanatan Dharma, which is there in multiple religions as well, right? So I understood that there is something beyond the physical and mental that we are aware of, which we do not really understand very much, but our ancestors have understood and written a whole lot of scriptures about it and a whole lot of unfoldment about it. And at some point of time, many of us have had some experiences that belied the logical understanding we were moving with. And that is when it started being called mystical. Yes. When you understand it, when you see it in the laboratory, it's scientific. But when you cannot understand it, you call it mystical. But once that mystique can be explained, it becomes scientific again.
Sure, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So that was the process I went through, So I understood that this entire concept of gods that we have in Sanatan Dharma, okay? So how does one look at it? One way of looking at it is that everybody is manifesting through them something. We'll just keep that on the side. We will look at the way okay, so in an organization, there is somebody who is the CEO. He has a chief marketing officer. He has a chief technical officer. He has a chief financial officer. While he is in charge of everything, the work has to be delegated according to certain areas, so that those people who need functionality, right? Those people who need any inputs in that function will go to that person. So here is this creation, and Sanatan Dharma has this trinity called Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, where Brahma is responsible for creation, Vishnu is responsible for sustenance, and what is normally said is that Shiva is responsible for destruction. But then matter can neither be created nor destroyed. Right. That is what we've learned in physics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So Shiva is not about destruction. He is about transformation, because matter can only change form. So he is the one who's responsible for transformation. And that transformation every time is moving from one dimension, one state of being to another state of being. Sure. So we know that, right? People start off as interns and executives and managers and supervisors and go on to be CEOs. So it's the same. So it's the same concept, right? The transformation is happening. As the transformation happens, sometimes the responsibilities come earlier and the promotion comes later. Sometimes the promotion happens, but the responsibilities are still not in sync. And that is how life goes on, right? So pretty much that way, the transformative aspect is Shiva. That does not mean that transformation cannot happen through Narayan. Just because somebody is the CEO, it does not mean he cannot look at the marketing function. It does not mean he's not responsible for the technical function, right? Sure. So there is this fluidity in them too. So the Narayan is the one who's responsible for sustenance. Sustenance is you have to make the world operate and stay functional and create more value. Isn't that what sustenance is all about? So what does Narayan do? Because his role is sustenance, what does he do? He also takes avatars. And what is an avatar? So somebody is in the head office and has to go somewhere on deputation to an area which is not as developed as the head office, but this person has to go on deputation. And depending on the kind of socio-economic environment there and the cultural environment there, the appropriate responsibility and the appropriate rights are given to that person so that he can exercise those rights in order to make his presence be felt there, and he can carry on the task accorded to him. Right? Okay. So we have various avatars of Vishnu coming at various points of time whenever the particular socio-economic environment was required. Are we live or have we gone? I thought there was some buffering.
Just for a second. Yeah, carry on.
Okay. So the appropriate values are brought by the person who has come to represent Narayan. So Narayan takes avatar. So he comes on deputation. So you have various, you have right from the Matsya avatar and the Varaha avatar and the Vaman avatar and the Parashuram avatar. For instance, when the Kshatriyas had gone kind of haywire and had started abuse of their power, at that point the Parashuram avatar came and he destroyed the Kshatriyas. That was his job. So that was the job profile he came with. So that was the avatar. And when the entire community was going, when the environment was such that people were taking on multiple spouses but not being honest to them, not taking care of their responsibilities towards them, not treating their parents well. So there was a decay in the social structure. At such a point, we had the Maryada Purushottam Ram, who came and made a point saying, only I will be dedicated to one woman for my life. I will look after my parents by paying heed to their desires, even if it means that I shall suffer in the process. So at one point of time when society was kind of developed, so what happens is when society develops, we've seen in civilizations, if you see the Roman Empire, when it was at the peak, there was also a decay of the moral structure. There was a decay of, basically people need direction at that time. So at that time came this avatar called Krishna, the most beautiful, gorgeous, multifaceted being we have all ever experienced. And
Yeah, so Anu, I just wanted to kind of take a minute to just kind of put in perspective for some members, people in the audience who may not have had this exposure to Indian deities or the Indian philosophy or the, well, I think it's quite common understanding and knowledge among people across the world. When they look at culture and philosophy, they always think, oh my God, Indians, you guys have these tens and thousands of gods and goddesses. But I think what you're talking about now has to be essential reading for somebody to figure out how to understand them. Because I think this analogy of associating the forces that govern the world, which you can put any name to it, you can call it God or energy or force or whatever, has such an interesting analogy to a corporate office. It's just that, or an organization. It's just there is a certain work or a certain facet that needs to be handled or a certain quality that you need to think about, and you're explaining it from that perspective, saying that every known energy or force or God or deity has a certain quality that we need to look out to. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. So, and it's you know, it works at multiple levels. At one level, it works as you look at the life story of the person and imbibe those qualities, which is what we are going to attempt today. Okay, we'll look at some stories from Krishna's life and learn some qualities. But there are much deeper and very precise levels as well. For example, the entire Karma Kand that we have of the Vedas, which is about giving us a process of Karma Kand is like a process or a ritual you have to follow. If you have a given goal, what is the ritual you shall follow? It's pretty much like if you're doing coding, if this is the result you want, there has to be a very precise code that has to be written down in order to achieve that result, right? So this process of Havan, which a lot of people would have seen, that you're consecrating something into a fire and you're chanting a particular mantra, and therefore, so what is this? What understanding does this work on? So this works on the understanding that there are these energies which are not in physical bodies, but just because they're not in physical bodies does not mean that they are not there. And they are there because they have a function to perform of running. These are the invisible forces which are managing the universe. Okay, pretty much like, which is why you have processes and guidelines in large organizations. No, the CEO is not there all the time. The HR manager is not there all the time to tell people what is to be done. There's an SOP that is provided, right? So there is an SOP that is provided. So which is that when you chant the mantra of a particular deity and you make an offering. And when you make that offering, in that process, you invite the deity to partake of your offering. And since these are not physical beings, but they are physical in the sense they are not in the, their makeup is not similar to ours. We are made of the 5 tattvas, like earth, water, fire, air, space, and ether, right? So we are made of these. So they don't have the earth element, therefore we don't see them. But they are made of a different, their fire element is the most, which is why whenever you see any picturization of any deity or god, there's a lot of glow in that, because the fire element is the most. And therefore, and they are nourished not through food. We partake of food when we swallow it. We chew it and swallow it, and we absorb it in our digestive system. That's how we partake of the food, and that's what gives us strength. But for them, the food is the fragrance. So therefore, the offerings that you make into a yajna, into a havan, is that fragrance which rises. So and the mantra that you chant is the, it's the protocol by which you address a certain force to come, and that force is responsible for a certain aspect of life. So if, for example, if you have a friend who works in an event management company and the events they organize are rock shows, and you have a good relationship with the friend, you ask him for passes, he'll give you rock show passes. But if this friend was with an event management company who was responsible for the cricketing events, he would give you cricket match passes, right? So similarly, there are different deities for different aspects. So you call upon them by making an offering, by chanting a mantra, you call upon them and you make an offering and you strengthen them. And when they are happy, they bless you with the aspect that they are responsible for. So if you have Lakshmi Mata for prosperity, so if you pray to her and you call upon her, So that prayer could be in a yajna, or it could be in an aarti, or it could be in a mantra chanting, or it could be some ritual which is a combination of all of these. But basically, when you invite her, treat her well, nourish her in the form that she is in, that the form that you understand, and she gives back that aspect that she is responsible for.
Okay, that's
It's
really
as simple
interesting.
as that.
So let me ask you this then. Just stepping aside for a bit, if you when you look at Vedantic studies, Advaita Vedanta, which talks about the ultimate realization being a realization that Brahman, or the ultimate consciousness, is you. And I know it's an abstract concept for many, but ultimately that realization is you. So then when you're looking or making offerings to a deity, are you saying that therefore you are actually looking at that quality of that deity within you? Can you make that extension?
If you understand yourself as beyond the body mind, yes, then it is true. But if you still think of yourself as an individual, then the deity is also an individual.
Right.
So it depends from where you're looking, no? It cannot be that I am a woman, that I look at myself as a woman, but I look at everybody else as only living beings. When I am a woman, I look at men as men, children as children, trees as trees, animals as animals. But if I think of myself only as a living being, then I look at everybody as only living beings. Right? So the ultimate, so this is often a confusion people have about Sanatan Dharma, saying, oh, you have so many gods. There is only one Parabrahman. There is only one.
Ultimate consciousness.
That the ultimate consciousness manifests as various. If you have moved from the personal identity, you no longer identify yourself as body mind, then you shall not identify others as body mind either. But you are still an individual, a human being, maybe a human being with more capacity than maybe normally people understand. Then there is a God and there is a deity, then there is an Isht, and there are these various deities. So it has to be that way. It cannot be. So the problem happens when we think of ourselves as individuals, but we say, "Aur kuch nahi hai, sirf Brahman." That is not true. मैं अगर इंसान हूँ तो आप भी इंसान हैं.
Yeah. So it's just the way you reflect and like how you perceive that external image, internal image. With that, this topic itself on the various facets of deities and what we can extract from the rituals and mythology could be a topic by its own. But for today's discussion, let's get into this, as you described, this most gorgeous one. We call it a being, a concept, a person you can relate to, a quality that you can relate to. Let's talk about Krishna. A lot of people, even completely not connected with Indian the Vedas or the Indian spirituality, have some knowledge or at least have heard about Krishna. But today is a great time, especially in this week that it is Janmashtami, which is the birthday of Krishna. Can you talk about, like, how would you describe this complete construct of Krishna?
Sure.
And let's begin from there.
Sure. I would love to. So the interesting thing I would like to share here is that my entire interest in understanding the iconography and the stories actually started from one statement somebody had made to me many years back about Jesus Christ. Can you believe that?
Right. Okay.
So I was going through a very challenging period in my life, and I was very hassled and very anxious and very stressed out. And there was this question about why me? Why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to go through this? And that kind of an approach. And this person said to me that, have you ever seen anybody pray to Jesus Christ without his cross? And he said, as Christ becomes what he is because he carries his cross. We all have to carry our own crosses in life, Anu. And it kind of, it just shook me up in that moment, saying, oh my God, all this time, everybody else has imposed on me what I think, what I should think as success, whether it is career or relationship or health or weight or looks, you know, in every aspect. And that is the cross I've been carrying around, the cross of expectations of people. And therefore I feel so burdened by it.
Yeah.
So if I have to be Jesus Christ, I have to carry the cross. But is it possible to be without the cross and just be happy with my life? And that is when I started looking and I started trying to look for answers. And I found amazing, amazing maturity and wisdom in the scriptures of the Sanatan Dharma. I studied Kabbalah for some time, and I found some amazing concepts there which really took me through another difficult period of my life. And then I realized actually there is no such thing as this is right, this is wrong. It is really about the resonance that you have at any given point of time. And for some time something works for you. And after that, when it has served its purpose, it is time for you to move on to understanding better. And it's an ongoing process. It's not a one-time thing.
Right.
And therefore, Vedanta is the ultimate understanding. But ultimate understanding के लिए preparation चाहिए होती है ना? अब you don't directly go to you don't directly go to becoming an MD. No, you go through class 11, 12. You take sciences with biology, then you prepare for an entrance exam, and then you do 5 years of medicine, and then again you wish and hope. Right? So what happens is most of us in terms of spirituality and religion think एक देखेंगे live Instagram पे और सब समझ में आ जाएगा. ऐसा होएगा नहीं.
For those who didn't get that, like it's not an easy road.
या वो है ना, एक शेर है, ये इश्क नहीं आसान, इतना तो समझ लीजिए, एक आग का दरिया है और डूब के जाना है.
Nothing of this journey is easy. Unless you actually start.
It's easy. Well, tell me, which aspect is it easy in? Tell me that. Where is it easy? Is it easy to become an engineer? Is it easy to become a doctor? Is it easy to become an IAS officer? Is it easy to become an IFS and a diplomat? No, and we are all right to invest our time and energy to pursue those goals. But the pursuit of our own happiness, how much priority have we given? Sure. This pandemic, this period when people were forced to stay indoors, they had no choice but to face themselves. They had no choice but to look within. So I say in a lot of ways, it has been a blessing. It has made people who had never thought about looking inwards to look inwards.
To look inward. Absolutely. Absolutely. The interest in spirituality, and I think more than spirituality, I think even to start off by being mindful and looking inwards, you're right. It's gone up hugely.
That is all. That is all the spirit of the matter, no? That is all the essence of matter. Forget the label. Label is not important.
Right. Sure.
What is important is an individual's own state of mind, its own state of happiness, own state of stability in emotions and relationships, in career. It's about that knowing inwards, you know, that space from within from which you can operate with a joy, which is your birthright.
Yeah, correct. So having elaborated on that now, so let's start with because I know you have so many different facets you want to cover on Krishna's life. So let's start with that. Because for our audience who are just joining us, like the reason why we've selected when I was talking with Anu earlier on, and like we were saying, okay, besides the fact that this is the week of Janmashtami, which is such a important occasion to celebrate Krishna's life, but when we were speaking, I realized from speaking to her that there's just so many different facets that one can apply from Krishna's life to our own lives, and just this wisdom, the quantum of wisdom is just too vast for us to come contemplate. So, Anu, let's start with maybe some of the lessons from early life, and then move on from there.
Sure, absolutely. So the story of Krishna's birth itself is so beautiful. You know, it starts, those of you who don't know, it starts with, actually the beauty of Sanatan Dharma is every story has a backstory, and that story has a backstory, and that story has a backstory. So it's really it gets very difficult. Where does one begin from, right? So we will begin from the birth of Krishna itself, right? So Krishna was born in a prison, and at the time that he was born, the guards outside fell asleep, and there was a threat to his life. It was expected that the person who had imprisoned the parents shall destroy the child as soon as the child is born. So the guards had clear instructions that as soon as the child is born, I can see somebody's comment, but we will address it later.
But we'll take it up at the end. Yeah. Let's take it up at the end.
Yeah. So as soon as the child is born, the guards were supposed to inform so that Kamsa, the mama, the maternal uncle, could come and demolish the child, right? But as soon as the child is born, the guards fall asleep, and the jail door opens, and the father puts the baby in a basket and carries it on his head on a night that is when it is raining heavily. And the child, a newborn baby is supposed to be held close to the mother's bosom, right? That is how a newborn baby, if you look at the NICU, if there is a premature baby, the entire process is to keep the child warm and cozy, right? As if it's still in the womb, right? But this baby, this Krishna, this baby, he is born in the midst of strife. His life begins with strife. The father bundles him up in a cloth and puts the basket on his head, and it takes him out and the river is raging. He has to cross that river. He has to cross that river and take the baby to a different village so that he can exchange the baby for another child there and bring that child back, because this child is supposed to be the savior of earth. This child is supposed to be the savior who will bring back dharma, who will bring back stability, who will bring back a principled life, right? So because any brother who out of fear for his own life has imprisoned his own sister and brother-in-law for years because he's gotten to know that they will give birth to somebody who will destroy him. I mean, can you imagine how debased that society must have become for the ruler to be like that, right? So it is very important to save this child because he will restore good life for everybody in that kingdom. So the father, he carries him on his head, and the river keeps rising. The river keeps rising. He's walking to the river, and the river is rising, and he's so scared. But you know what the river does? The river rises to the top, touches the child's foot, and falls down again. That is the beauty. The river was rising not to trouble, because the river is feeling so privileged. That this ethereal being, this beautiful child is going. The Narayan avatar has come, and the river has an opportunity to touch him. So it rises to touch his foot as obeisance to him, and then it goes down, and then he reaches the village. Now, so basically, if a CEO in the head office is actually serious about sending somebody on deputation to another area to restore health, restore vitality. You've seen the kind of problems that the UN people have in going to states which are full of violence. Their paperwork will not get completed. There is a threat to their lives. Isn't it the same situation?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the answer, it is just replicating the same situation. So this is Krishna who has come prepared. So whoever goes on deputation has to be prepared to deal with that kind of strife. So if there is ever an agenda, a goal that is really important, that is really meaningful, and it involves the well-being of a whole lot of people who are oppressed, then the person who comes to help them has to be prepared for strife. That is the first message that Krishna as a baby has given to us.
Right.
And even this thing about the Yamuna rising to touch the feet and then going back. So at the head of the baby is covered by a Nag who is following as the father is walking, right? Yeah. So nothing that our ancient people have said or given even in a mythology as a story. Mythology itself is a debatable thing because it is itihas. This is how it has been. When you say this is how it has been, it becomes time agnostic. It means it was like this, it is like this, and it shall be like this. So then it's describing, so for example, when we talk about strife, areas of strife and the UN people going there, it is still like that, right? Anybody who has to come to salvage other people has to be prepared to go through hardship. So itihas hai ye, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but the fact that they've used a snake, that they've used the river rising, it is all symbolic of the activity that happens in the pranic body. When the kundalini rises, when the energy rises and it's flush, that surge happens, it goes to the top. It is not enough to go to the top. For Krishna's wisdom to be carried forward into the rest of life, it is important that it has to come down.
Interesting. That's
so Kundalini, most people just talk about Kundalini rising. Kundalini rising is great. It will create a lot of, that surge will actually replenish every chakra and make the energy body stronger and all of that. But if it stays up there, it is of no use. It will destroy the very being. It has to come down so that what has been achieved in that surge, that journey can continue to everybody else's benefit.
Correct. Absolutely.
So this is this is the second lesson from Krishna.
Now I want to ask you something. Once you, so this is a beautiful lesson, which, as you rightly said, just as a baby itself, like there's so much that you can interpret from this, and you can take away from this to actually understand. No matter where you start, it could be full of strife, and this is something that you can do. I wanted to ask you something which, in my mind, growing up, is most of the stories that I heard were around these. This is around Krishna's youth and childhood. There was so much of the stories you heard were all about mischief, about him stealing butter from here, about him going something and
that's so cute, right?
Hitting the pots. What according to you, what is the takeaway from? Is it to say that don't lose the fun part of living? What do you interpret from that part of his life?
Multiple things. I mean, if you speak to any child psychologist about what is the best way to bring up a child, right? They will say, give him adequate nutrition, right? Butter full of calcium, because it's calcium supplements dete hain na aajkal.
Yeah.
How would the rural folk be taught what to feed their kids?
Yeah.
Butter, the healthiest thing you can give to a young growing up child, because his bones still have to form. So butter is the healthiest, most nutritious thing. So if you see, most of Krishna's life as a child is all about butter. Kabhi maa khila rahi hai, kabhi wo chori karke kha rahe hai, right? Maiya mori, main nahi makhan khayo. This child is lying to the mother. Main nahi ma. The mother knows, and she's laughing. Because children are like that. They have to be left free. Their creative juices will flow that way. Their exploratory instinct, their curiosity has to be nurtured. And we have started understanding that, which is why nowadays you will find, okay, not nowadays like during the pandemic, but otherwise you will find parents are taking the children for piano classes, for soccer classes. What is that all about? It is about giving exposure to the child so that the curiosity in that child can develop. That is more important than developing number skills.
Yeah.
That is more important than, that is more important than developing any particular. So, because that is the time when a child will become multifaceted, no? So, if you speak to child psychologists and you come and tell them that my child was telling me stories and he lied, they're not, the children are not lying. They're being imaginative.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is something to be nurtured. You have to understand, while we are telling them, we're teaching them life principles, we have to understand where they're coming from. Because if we teach them from a moral point of view, say, it's a sin to lie, and you slap them on the wrist, you will only make the child shrivel up from inside. But if you understand the fantasy and participate in it, right? Then what happens? Then the child's ability to think and manifest becomes so much bigger. And that is where you create, if you look at the stories of all successful people in arts and in the various fine arts, you'll see that they were all people who as children had, access to exposure which others did not. And that is
Sure.
because of the kind of parenting they had.
Yeah. That's
Right?
true.
So it's a huge lesson in that. So don't scold the child, nourish the child well, participate in play. There are so many plays where the mother and the child are playing.
Yeah.
So it's not, and that is such in this pandemic, how have mothers kept their children busy? I mean, you think grown-ups have suffered? Ask young mothers when their children can't go out and go and play
I
in the
know.
park and don't have friends, how they
You
have
have to
kept
be
them
creative.
busy.
You have to make your children be creative as well during
Yeah,
this
I mean,
period.
earlier people who were saying no more than 1 hour of TV time suddenly realized that TV is such a good babysitter. But there are mothers who have persevered and said, no more TV time. And they have discovered when they do things with children learn so much better. Now in India, those of you who are not from India, we have the new education policy, which is actually attempting to alter the way we have been looking at education by incorporating all this thing in the education policy now. Because
Far more
this is
vocational,
what,
much earlier on.
yeah, this is how it was supposed to be. This is what the Puran, the Bhagavad Puran, when you sat and read it and you read about Krishna's life, this is what you learned from it. So if your God was brought up that way, you bring up your child that way.
Yeah.
And that is what makes it beautiful.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing through all those different kind of stories about Krishna's childhood that you hear, he gets into trouble. The initial response might be anger, but that anger is never carried forward, whether it is his own mother or if he's throwing a stone at the pots that the Gopikas are carrying. And it's, of course, they're furious initially, but it's not like, it's that minuscule sense of, oh, what's happened? But after that, it's allowing that creativity to flourish, isn't it?
So that saying that they have, it takes a village to bring up a child. The entire village was involved in the bringing up of this child.
Right.
Wasn't the entire village involved in it?
Absolutely.
How the mother should behave. And look at the respect that this set of parents, these are the parents to whom he was not, they realized soon enough that it was not their own child, but that did not diminish their love. That did not diminish the way they poured themselves into the child's life. So even how adoptive parents should be bringing up children, there are life lessons there too.
Sure.
Every aspect of life has been touched upon in this. And as he grows up a little, this little boy is what? He's a cowherd. He goes to graze the cows, right? He goes to graze the cows, but he has a sense of style, mind you. If you go and look at the rural India and you look at the young boys there and when they're, bathing in the ponds and they're jumping around and playing games, look at the vitality in them. That's the joy of being brought up.
Yeah, I think we lose some of that, honestly, in urban settings. The ability to be absolutely free. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is what Krishna's life is all about. There is this devotional aspect. So there are various ways in which we can pursue our spiritual goals and spiritual exploration, right? But broadly, they can be defined that there are 4 aspects to it. So there is the devotion aspect, which is the Bhakti Yoga. There is the Gyan Yoga, which is the intellect and vichar aspect. Then there is the Karma Yoga, and there is the Hatha Yoga. So mostly these are the 4 aspects to each of us, our spiritual journeys. So in the Bhakti Yoga, there is this entire sect where they look after Laddu Gopal. This is a little idol of a baby Krishna in their temple who is treated like a child. There is butter made at home every day for the idol. The idol is bathed every day. The clothes are changed. And when they travel, they carry him because you can't leave a child alone at home. So they carry him with him. So there are weddings I have attended where, there is the varmalas that is going to happen. And suddenly somebody said, wait, what happened? I have to bring Laddu Gopal from the room. It is time for him to wake up. So he also has to see this. And this person has gone and brought a little statue in a tokri and come there and stood there for the function. And I'm, oh my God, look at the sense of commitment that a young girl has developed towards that idol. Can you imagine the kind of parenting she will do? Can you imagine the kind of parent she will become? And when you fall in love with the idol of a child and you are willing to indulge that child with beautiful clothes and nutritious food, will you be able to see children around the world in hunger and be indifferent towards it? Would you be able to do
Very
that?
good point.
No.
Very good point. Yeah, absolutely. That level of
Yes.
caring not just for yours and yours alone. And very rightly you said that the entire community was bringing up Krishna. The entire village was bringing up Krishna. And therefore, you're not alone in this path. You have to look around you and what's happening around you. And that kind of caring and nurturing will come.
And what does this little boy do when he takes the cows out to graze? He plays his bansuri.
The flute.
Which is saying that the flute, yeah. So which is what? Which is saying that the creative juices have to be flowing in a child at an early age. Today, a lot of families recognize that, and they allow their children to go for music classes and dance classes, whatever the child resonates with. Not everybody has to be, one has to understand the energy of the child. How my child's energy moves and what is it that will help. So my two children, my elder son used to play the violin, and my younger son, who was a lot more energetic and had a lot more aggression, when he tried to play the violin, it was criminal, man. It was so difficult for all of us to go through it. But when he took to the drums, it was amazing. I mean, because it energized, because this boy had to move his hands a lot more than anybody else had to. And through that, the kind of music he created was amazing. Everybody was happy. So there is no such thing that every child has to play the flute. That is not how it has to be understood. It has to be understood as that every child has to be given an opportunity to pursue a creative interest, because that will help the child be more stable.
Yeah.
So in childhood, one has to get them interested, and particularly if it is music, and particularly if it involves some sort of breath control. So if a child goes swimming, that will also help a child, because a child develops breath control through these. If a child starts doing yoga as a small child, at a young age, a person will age slower. The person will not age as quickly as other people. There are so many benefits of all these things. So this is a very important lesson from Krishna's life.
Fascinating. Now, Anu, I just want to, have a quick check on the time. I can't imagine where the time has flown, because I thought we were just in the beginning of the discussion, but I can see that we literally have just about 7-8 minutes of this 1 hour left, and that's crazy. So I know that we were, after looking at the beginning and Krishna's youth, we spoke about, jumping and fast forwarding to the big part of what everybody, talks about, the wonder of Krishna's life, which actually culminated in the whole Bhagavad Gita. And now, I know we're jumping forward many parts.
That's all right. See, Krishna is a subject that we can go on and on about it for days, and we shall not be satisfied.
And
there will still be something left to say.
Yeah, maybe we need to do a session just on the Bhagavad Gita. But how should we approach the guidance that Krishna gave Arjuna on the battlefield of the Mahabharata? How should we approach this whole concept of Bhagavad Gita? Should we, for people who are not familiar with it, does it start with actually getting in the Bhagavad Gita itself? I mean, can it be done?
Yes, it can be done, as long as the essential thing about Vedanta. So Bhagavad Gita is part of Vedanta, right? The essential thing about Vedanta is not to study Vedanta as an outsider, but to study it while putting yourself in it. What does it mean? It means it is not just about the words that are spoken, but the interpretation that applies to our life, to an understanding of our own life. Because unless we can own it, there is no point. And there has to be a sense of devotion. It cannot be done in a superfluous and detached manner. Because if you notice, when Bhagavad Gita study starts, you do the Gita Dhyan shlokas before that, where you invoke the goddess Bhagavad Gita before you start. Because basically that is for what? That is to bring yourself in a space of devotion. So that is the beauty. Even the Gyan Marg, the mark of intellect, when it is being followed, the heart has to be involved. That is the first thing. Once the heart is involved, then it's okay. If the heart is not involved, then one has to keep doing the study in a systematic manner where the person says, do this, do this, do this, till the point that the heart does not get involved. Because without the heart getting involved, nothing's going to come out of it. You might become scholarly. One might become scholarly. But how does that help you?
Yeah. It's the insight.
It has to create transformation within. No, that is when it is helpful. No.
Now,
right?
While
So
we can't get deep into the actual learnings and the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita in this session, I wanted to ask you about one interpretation. The way the Bhagavad Gita was, the teaching was given by Krishna to Arjuna was in a very unique role as Krishna as the charioteer for Arjuna. Can you interpret that? Can you interpret that for our audience today?
Yes, surely. The biggest thing is this is the God about whom we are talking even now, right? He was a king and he had these multiple wives and he had so much affluence and everybody listened to him, yet he agreed to be a charioteer to his friend. That is look at the humility. A God with humility. Have you heard of that anywhere? That is the beauty. हमें कोई कह दे कि मेरे driver की तबीयत, my driver is not feeling well and I have to go for a meeting and you say you sit पीछे, I will drive, the driver will be shocked.
Yeah.
Saying, no, madam, it's okay. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I have had that. I said, you're not feeling well, you sit, I'll drive. I can drive, don't worry. And he's shocked. So you will drive. You have to go for a meeting. I will take you and go. So no, it's okay. That is the first lesson. The second lesson. Do you know in the second chapter itself, in the 5 shlokas, Krishna has explained the entire Vedanta and the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Yet Arjuna is not satisfied and he keeps asking questions and he keeps asking questions. 700 shlokas. Why? Not because something new had to be said, but because this person who was asking questions was not satisfied. That is the patience of a teacher, a patience of a guru, that he will not let you fall apart. He will not leave you midway till you are done and satisfied, till you are satisfied. And the autonomy of the person is protected. He does not say, do this because I say so.
Right.
He keeps spending time to explain till he is satisfied and then of his own accord decides to take action. He could have said, no, I'm telling you, you do this. He didn't say that. But Keshav goes on, Arjuna, and he keeps explaining and explaining and explaining. What can be a bigger lesson than this? We lose patience with our own children within a few minutes of their asking questions. Yeah. That is the beauty of Vedanta.
Or with colleagues, or with their clients, or with whoever, any relationship. Yeah. True.
Yeah. So Vedanta encourages people to ask questions. Yeah. Because unless you ask questions, there can be only 2 scenarios in which no questions are asked. One, when everything is understood the first time, then there are no questions to ask. Yeah. Or nothing is understood. Nothing is understood.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
So people ask questions when they have begun to assimilate the matter. Yeah. What can be a greater compliment to a teacher that somebody has started understanding the matter and is therefore asking questions?
Anu's, as usual, all fantastic things and beautiful narrations. This session has to come to an end because we're almost out of time. It's fascinating. I really hope we get to do another session to talk more about these aspects, Krishna, other aspects of Indian mythology and traditional wisdom. Thank you so much for joining us on this session.
It's been my pleasure. It's been my pleasure.
I can see from the comments coming in from the audience, it was a wonderful, wonderful session. Some people have asked about even Buddhism, other aspects. We will discover more of these as we go along. But thank you so much for joining us.
If you like, I can share the name of my book, which I've written about the gods and goddesses. Yeah. Okay. So there is this book I have called Avirbhav, which has a set of cards with it. So it's a good starting point for people who want to understand about deities.
Fantastic.
And they can check out my website also, and they'll find details there, annukalra.com. So whatever works, no issues.
ANNUKALRA.com. Great. Anu,
That's
thank
right.
you so much. I can't wait
My
to have you
pleasure.
back at I can't wait to have you back at Ananda so we can explore so many more of
I
these
look forward
fascinating
to
subjects.
that too. That is one place I look forward to going to as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. And
All
it's
right.
been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.